Today's guest is Lizy Freudmann, who is a marketing strategist with a special interest in behavioral economics. She has worked with a wide range of businesses throughout her career, ranging from top 40 musicians, to solopreneurs, to various academic and financial service and institutions. Before a marketing career, she earned her BA in American Civilization from Brown University and both her MBA and Masters in Global Business from Tulane University. She lives in New Orleans, and her company, One More Thing, was a first certified B Corp in the state of Louisiana. So, Lizy, thank you much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm great. That's Tulane University, just for folks who might know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's on me because yeah, this is my own Canadian ignorance of US
No, no
colleges, you know what I
problem.
mean? Anyway, outside of that, yeah, I mean, listen, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that bio that you feel like is relevant to just kind of give us the context on who you are, floor is yours for that.
I think that's pretty much the the meat and potatoes for this purposes of this call.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, in that case, I'd love to get into it. So I know when you originally submitted your stuff to be on the podcast, some of the challenges that you described in your kind of day-to-day entrepreneurial life were around staying focused, avoiding burnout, and then the subsequent kind of uncreativity that results from being in that state or kind of chasing not to be in that state. So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what do you mean by that? How does that manifest for you? And then we can kind of dive into more of the specifics.
So I'm a marketing person. I really like marketing work. I find it really fascinating, and um, I like spending my time working on marketing projects. And I feel like just the nature of sales cycles and business trends, I've been putting a lot of my energy into sales and self promotion and networking. And um, that's definitely part of being an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've worked with other entrepreneurs. I know that that is a necessary part of the business. But what I really want to do is marketing work for clients, helping my clients get there. So I find it frustrating and a little bit um, discouraging when I'm spending a lot of my time doing the operational stuff of the business when I would when I'm like hungry to, you know, get down to the exciting challenges. And I feel like unfortunately that um, I know that I have to do it. I don't have any doubt that I have to do it. There's no like what if I don't do it, because that's what it takes to run a business. But it's hard to find the discipline to stay focused on that when I feel like um, there are other better uses of my time. And also, I miss doing the more creative stuff. Not that I'm uncreative in the way I connect with people and do sales, but it's like not the stuff that makes my heart sing.
Got it. And then just for my own context, how long have you been like in this business?
A long time. I guess I started this iteration of the business in 2013. But I've always had sort of a side hustle, even when I was working more corporate jobs. I took time off to get my master's degree and worked part of the time I was there, but then like reincorporated when I decided I was going to be staying in Louisiana to be a Louisiana-based company.
Okay. So since 2013, you've been running this iteration
Fifth
of the
iteration of this company, yeah.
yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like, yeah, you've done this for essentially a decade in obviously various different capacities for different clients, but this kind of like core, um, the outsourced marketing person for another company, like that's the main thing you've been focused on since 2013.
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems to me like part of, and again, I'm just poking and prodding from the outside looking in, but it seems like there's this element of I've been doing the same grind again and again. There's aspects of it that still light me up, but the necessary momentum required to keep this up, I'm really getting tired of. Like, is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that that's accurate. Um, I think it is not an uncommon experience for entrepreneurs. Um, Knowing a lot of them, and uh, the fact that it's not uncommon doesn't make it more fun, right? Like just because it's a fairly normal experience, doesn't mean that it's like fun to be thinking about the grind.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It's kind of like it's not uncommon for it to rain, but I still don't like getting
Yeah, I
rain,
feel like I need an
right?
umbrella one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. Um, so again, from the outside looking in, I guess what I'm hearing is there's a part of you that wants to evolve in some sort of way, but then there is like inertia and resistance for that evolution that's kind of overpowering that desire. Is that accurate?
I think it's um not inaccurate, but I think that it's a little more nuanced. I think that um, some of the inertia helps you evolve, right? Because it forces you to ask questions. So there's evolution in the pauses in as much as there's evolution in the sprints. Um, but yeah, I think that there's some tension there.
Hmm. So what questions is a part of you fearing to ask?
I don't know. Um,
Okay.
I, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but
So if you had to guess, what questions do you think those might be?
well, I think I've asked myself a lot of hard questions, so I don't know if there are ones that I'm afraid of asking so much. Like, I've asked myself, like, do I want to just, throw in the towel and get a real person job? And I know the answer to that is no. Um, as much as I like experimented with what that might look like and how that might feel, I think the answer is no. Um, I'm pretty sure the answer is no. That I think is the scariest question, but you know, looked at it. So I don't know if there's anything else.
Hmm. Fair enough. And that's kind of why I was asking just to see where it would go. So I asked the question, do I want to throw in the towel and get a job? The answer, I think, is no. So why is there a part of you that wants to throw in the towel?
Well, because it's a lot easier to have like a day job, right? Like, you get benefits, you get health insurance, you um like show up where you're told to show up and do what you're told to do. And um you don't have to like be responsible for every piece of it.
Mhm.
Um it's really nice to have health insurance, which I have to like pay for on my own. Um it's nice to have people around to double check your work. I have to double check my work myself, or hire people or ask friends for help. It's like much easier to work in a structured environment. And part of me wonders, like, wouldn't it be nice to just like let someone else worry about ordering office furniture or business cards, or like
Mhm.
which choices to make about computer like software or whatever else. But there's also a lot of constraints that come with that. And as a person who is very motivated by my interests and my integrity and my values, and likes to be curious. Like I like to have space to explore. I also think that I would feel confined by those limitations.
Hmm. So whenever this kind of thought of like, I just want to burn it all to the ground comes up in entrepreneurs that I'm working with, usually it's not like you say about necessarily wanting to like actually pull the trigger and quit. It's usually like our brain almost going to this fantasy of blowing it all up because it wants relief from something. So, what relief would a job give you that you're not experiencing right now?
Well, to be clear, I wouldn't ever blow it all up. I will always end up working on things outside of my day job, so to speak. I always have. So even if I did, you know, stop doing this as my primary like source of income and the way I spent most of my time, there'd still be a piece of me that was in it. So I wouldn't want to blow it up. But the relief that I would get would be not having to make every decision every day and not being responsible, um, not having everything be on my shoulders every day.
Okay, so not having to make decisions, not having to be responsible, not having to have everything on my shoulders. So it's really about the burden of being responsible for everything.
Yeah. Um, when I am inspired by the work I'm doing, that responsibility becomes less of an issue. It feels like there's balance, right? Like there's equal parts excitement and creativity and um, you know, intellectual growth and challenges in the day to day. And that makes the like remembering to file my paperwork with the Secretary of State and um, you know, talking to my accountant however often I need to talk to my accountant and like, making decisions about I have like very strong high standards about like service providers and types of where I will like purchase business goods from because I really want to support local businesses and support family-owned businesses and community-owned businesses. So I vet all my vendors. That's a lot of work,
Hmm.
and it would be nice to be like, I just don't care, or somebody else is in charge of this instead of spending, like however many hours a month I spend making sure that I have good suppliers.
Fair, because I mean, those are your values and you get to
Yeah.
choose them, especially if it's your business.
Yeah.
So, what is your relationship to asking for help?
Um, there have been times I've been great at it, and there have been times I've been less great at it.
Mhm.
I know that when I ask for help, it's really important to be specific because sometimes people offer help that is actually very unhelpful. Um, and
Hmm.
sometimes, and I understand that it comes from a good place, but it may not actually get me to where I want to go. And sometimes I'm not sure exactly what I need help with. Um, and
So,
sometimes I know that I'm the best person to make those decisions. So I really
and
can't.
that's fair, right? Because you are, at the end of the day, the owner. And the reason I was starting to cut you off wasn't because it wasn't relevant. It was just to highlight, like when yellow flags kind of come up, like I'll do this. Um, because the original question was like, what is your relationship to asking for help? Where your brain went to answering that was basically describing your experiences of asking for help. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes the people I ask for help don't really end up helping me. I also have to make a lot of decisions. So your own personal relationship to asking for help. What does it mean about you if you ask for help? How do you feel when you ask for help? How do you feel when you need support? What's your relationship to those aspects?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends who I'm asking and what I'm asking for, which is a very equivocal answer, but it is an honest answer.
Mhm. So even with that, right? Because from the outside looking in, the way that I would hear that is like, well, there's a part of you that basically scans the world and is like, okay, is this person safe to ask for help?
It's safe, but also valuable, right? Like I don't want to waste other people's time unless I feel like they have something that they can materially add. And I don't want to waste my time unless I feel like I'm going to get the the outcome I'm looking for. There are, I mean, like everybody, there are certain things that are harder for me to admit. I need help with, like, you know, I don't have as much income as I was planning on this month, or um, this campaign didn't perform as well as I thought it was going to. You know, there are things that are harder to ask for, but I've learned to like muddle through that. And also, there are times where it's really fun to ask for help because you get to bring more people into the conversation, which leads to like more ideation and more growth for everybody. And um, as a curious person, as a seeker of knowledge, that's always a gift. Like
Mhm.
I always say, I like to be the stupidest person in the room or the least informed person in the room because that means like I'm in a room full of people who can teach me stuff.
Mhm. So when there is a result connected to asking for help, that's where you're most likely to do it. But when you are down and you like feel like you just need some sort of support, some sort of I got your back, that's where it gets a little bit more difficult. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that that's probably accurate. And I also think that that's because um, if it's nebulous, it's hard for people to know what to do.
Hmm.
I hate being asked for help when I have no idea what to do. I
Hmm.
don't, if there's a problem, I can help solve it. If there's like an understanding of what feels incorrect for like a friend, if they're like, I'm unhappy, I don't know what to do if we can't figure out why. And like I'm happy to go through it with my friends and say, like, why are you unhappy? But um from a business perspective, it's I have to know enough before I ask so that the other person I'm reaching out to doesn't have to like muddle through my brain with me.
Right. So these are very important details, and I'll break down kind of why I'm asking you these questions, right? When you are sharing that the times I feel confident or okay asking for help is when I have a clearly articulated problem, which means I have a clearly like requested solution. I have vetted that this person can likely give me that solution. Even when people come to me, I hate not being able to actually provide a solution to the problem they're coming with to me with. All of that is rooted in a very pragmatic look at needs. Okay. And support. That has its time and place, and I'm not at all hating on that in any way, shape, or form. What I'm getting at and why I was asking you these questions is burnout oftentimes is not due to the amount of work. Like it's a component, but there are a lot of people that get a lot of stuff done and they are fired up by doing and
Yeah.
outputting a lot, right? Burnout generally tends to happen by, in some way, shape, or form, suppressing or ignoring the emotional aspects of whatever the work is actually bringing up. When you describe your relationship to asking for help, a lot of it is actually rooted in there's very little space to ask for nebulous things such as my needs, such as I'm having a hard time and there's no clear solution. So what's kind of the point of, bringing this up? And even some of the work you mentioned at the beginning, it's like for somebody that's been in business for as long as you have, like to me, it seems like this would be good work to like delegate and outsource to somebody else, right? And I know we haven't talked about the context of like, is there business resources to outsource that, et cetera. But it's just like what I would guess is you probably take on the responsibility of a lot more things than maybe you need to, especially at the level of business that you're at, and or to make the room to work like the type of work that like lights you up. So before I add more to that, like what's landing for you there, what's accurate, what isn't?
I think that that's probably fair. I want to just clarify, in case any of my loved ones listen to this, that it's not that I think that I can't go to my friends with like my friends or my family with general like life angst, but specific to business stuff. I often tell people when they ask me like, "Oh, I think I want to be an entrepreneur, start a business." I say like, "Cool, and you should know it's the loneliest job in the world because nobody but you will understand what's happening in your business on a day-to-day basis. Like other people will have had comparable problems and people you employ will experience the ebbs and flows, with you, but only you will have the responsibility and the knowledge to lead it. So can like just can you accept that? And if you can't, then it's probably not the right choice. So yeah, I think you're right on the money when you say there's not a lot of space in the world for like the nebulous emotional component of entrepreneurship. And I think you've nailed it when you talk about the um, the piece of burnout that has to do not with quantity of output, but of how doing that work actually makes you feel.
Correct. So I appreciate you sharing that because I think it is a common trap that a lot of entrepreneurs get themselves in, which is just like isolation trap. And while I do agree with the statement that not everybody can relate to your exact struggles, I will challenge you that at the end of the day, the like that very belief is in and of itself isolating. Like I have lots of friends who aren't entrepreneurs that don't understand exactly what I'm doing and that I have no problem sharing even some of the stresses. Now, obviously, I know that I can get better like insights and reflections and all of that through other connections that I have that are also like other entrepreneurs. And there's, that's why I always say like coaches need coaches as well, because you do need an outlet somewhere. So the way that beliefs always work is that they reinforce each other, right? So like if I've carried this belief my whatever whole entrepreneurial life to the degree that I actually share it with other people, which is like this is lonely and isolating. If you're not willing to put that up front, then this probably isn't for you. Then that is the lens through which you're going to view a lot of these decisions. And I think one of the biggest ones here is like it's kind of like what's oftentimes associated with burnout is also depression. Like they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's true.
And the opposite, well, actually, what do you think the opposite of depression then actually is?
Curiosity.
Okay, how so?
Depression is, I mean, I definitely think curiosity is the opposite of anxiety. And I think it's related to depression. Um, depression is a complex issue that involves brain chemistry and environment and genetics. And so I don't want to minimize it or say there's like one path out of it. But I think that for people who are not suffering from disabling depression, right, and have just feelings of depression, maybe not like clinical levels or whatever, is often experienced as apathy, or a lack of interest. And wonder and curiosity are sort of energizing, motivating forces. So like I mean, I'll talk about this podcast, right? I was like a little bit hesitant to do it because like it does make you vulnerable to go on a podcast and have a stranger sort of read you and say, I see this in you and I see that in you, right? And I was really curious. At the end of the day, I decided that the curiosity wins over the fear. So showed up.
And congratulations for that, by the way, because it's a lot of like speak to a lot of people that are like, oh, this sounds so interesting, but and
so anyone listening who's on the fence, this isn't scary, just FYI.
yeah. Well, does it feel like, did it feel scary initially, and how does it feel now?
It felt scary like when I first saw the like I don't remember how whether you messaged me on a Facebook matching Facebook a podcast matching platform or I messaged you or however when I read the format it was initially like this seems like it could be a gotcha. And I don't want to be the victim of a gotcha, but I think that gotchas are like not cool for anybody. So I did a little bit of due diligence and checked it out, and I was like, okay, I'm open to it. And then I was thinking, like, what could I like go into this with a good faith, in good faith. So I'm not a dishonest guest, right? Like, I want to get a meaningful experience out of this, and I want it to be meaningful for you too. So can I do it in good faith? And then I thought, what would make this work for me? How does it align with the goal that I set for myself of becoming more comfortable talking about myself? And then there was just like, well, let's just hope it goes well, and maybe it won't, but like I can't control everything. So here we are.
Fair enough. And I thank you for sharing that as well. So I guess I'll give you the context of or the background of why I asked you those questions. So the whole conversation around like, okay, burnout and an aspect of that is actually depression. It's like, okay, what's the opposite of that? So to you, it's curiosity. And to me, and my working definition of depression, curiosity, in my opinion, would be the gateway to the kind of letting go of depression, right? Because it's one of those aspects of like you can't change what you can't see. Curiosity and the awareness that it stems from is the space with which you view what is actually going on here. Okay. To me, the opposite of depression is actually expression. Okay. So even if you look at like what you described here, it's like I felt fear, which oftentimes will translate into anxiety, especially with entrepreneurs, which will interpret as stress. When we suppress that, eventually repress that, it turns into depression. That is going to be a contributor of the burnout because it's like I'm doing all the activities suck because there's all this like dark cloud energy around me, right?
What do you
Now,
mean by depression? What is what is your working definition of depression?
My
Just
working
so,
definition of depression.
yeah, because it's such a complex thing. I want to be clear that there's like entrepreneurial apathy, and then there's like clinical non-responsive depression that requires in-house
Yeah, I mean,
hospitalization.
I'm definitely not talking about that because I agree with you that that is something that goes beyond the scope of what I do and certainly goes beyond the scope of it's like if you can't get out of bed, like we need different interventions, right? So I'm
Yeah,
not talking
I do.
about,
I just want to be clear about that because
yeah, I'm talking about the feelings of like dullness
yeah,
that tend to paint the experience of running a business. Now, that is a wide spectrum of things. Like it can go to the degree of like, what's the point of doing all of this? It can go to the degree of like, I feel like I'm working for no, like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It can feel like I should be happy about this, but I'm not. I try to celebrate things, but I can't. I try to do gratitude practices and they just fall flat. Like there's a wide spectrum of how that shows up. That's very individual to the person.
yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so okay. Anything else you want it like that I can clear up with regards to that?
No, I agree with you that uh, expression is probably helpful. Um, and when I'm stuck, I would describe it more as like a feeling of stuck than a feeling of depression. At is I find it challenging to even want to express myself or like know how to do that. Is it talking? Is it listening to music? Is it writing a song? Is it painting a picture? Like what is it that needs to come out? What is it that's being blocked or unexpressed? Um, which is why I feel to me curiosity is the door that opens the path forward, right? Um,
So I agree with you that the curiosity is the door that opens it. And I appreciate you sharing your experience of that stuckness and that question of like, well, do I write a song? Do I paint a picture? Do I watch a comedy? Right? Those are basically questions around, okay, even if the opposite of depression is expression, even if the opposite of this stuckness is expression, what the hell do I express? Like, I don't like being here, but like, what do I do? Right? That is a good tactical question. And the solution to it is not actually intellectual, it's actually emotional. And this goes back to what I was asking you before about what is your relationship to asking for help? What is your essentially what is your relationship to expression? Right? Because part of that whole asking for help, part of that whole delegation, part of the whole nobody understands me, those are all belief and emotional blocks rooted in the lack of safety or the lack of understanding how to even interpret particular emotions and then find an outlet that historically has been safe and secure in a way that allows me to complete the full circle and get closure on a lot of those. And I know that's a very broad strokes generality that totally misses the mark on whatever your individual nuances may be. And again, I know that's outside the scope of like this particular podcast, but that's essentially the question, like the answer to the question of like, well, what is it that I do? It's much less about what you do, and it's much less or much more about how you are being in relation to yourself, and most specifically to the emotions that don't generally want to come out in some sort of way. So what lands for you with all of that?
Well, a lot. And um, it's interesting because I find that, when I'm just feeling like a sense of burnout and stuckness with work, I'm still able to be excited and feel a connection in my other pursuits. And um, like with my friendships and my family and my like volunteer work and whatever else. So it um there's spaces for talking about feelings in all of those activities and relationships. There aren't really very many in entrepreneurial circles. So I think it's probably um accurate for me to say that there is a bunch of stuff that would be easier to deal with if I have like a good place to channel it. And that might be relief. It might offer relief, which is something you mentioned earlier.
Correct. So what I'm hearing here is really my need is to find a place where I can explore the emotions and the stresses and the stuckness of entrepreneurship in the same way that I can explore personal things with friends. Because
Yeah.
at that point, the burden of carrying all of that, it having nowhere to go and essentially having to be recycled inside of me is lessened. And that experience of burnout and heaviness is then likely to also kind of move away with that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I will say that in the past, and to some degree, even today, I have worked to try to create those entrepreneurial safe spaces, but it's very hard because entrepreneurs have a million things going on. And um, it's very challenging to get um, to create a safe space like that and um, engage with folks who are interested in that kind of openness.
Right. Because
And
they also have very similar reservations around the same
yeah,
expressions and what that would mean and how would I look like. That's kind of what I told you towards the middle of our conversation of like a lot of people message me, but there's always a reason why they can't do what you just did. Right. So that is part of that problem. And again, that's more of like a generality.
yeah,
But I think what's more important here for you personally is like my reflection back to you is you have like the burnout and the stuckness and the like, man, the relief seeking, etc., like all that, those pieces we kind of started with, those are really all symptoms of what we just dove into, which is I actually have no outlet for my entrepreneurial stresses.
yeah, that's probably accurate.
Okay, fair. So, I mean, I know I can't solve that for you in this particular episode. I mean, technically, this is what I would do in a coaching container, but I think the important part for you And I mean, obviously, a lot of people listening too is like, okay, if that is the core, like at least you now understand what the core problem is. So it's like I can focus less on solving the surface level problem. I can focus more on solving like the actual core problem. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And it is a problem I can solve. Like it'll take a lot of work, but
And how is that like, how do you think you can solve it? Like, what would be your approach to solving it?
I know a lot of other entrepreneurs, and I'm in a lot of entrepreneurial groups and I'm in a lot of entrepreneurial communities, and I can make more of an effort to reach out and try to form stronger connections with folks in my community. Um, I can be a little more vulnerable, probably. I can show up a little more honestly. I mean, not that I ever show up dishonestly. Honesty is like very integral to who I am. But so many things are true at once. And sometimes the truth that needs to be at the forefront is the one where it's like, it's just been a really hard week and I need someone to talk to about it. Um,
Yep.
so yeah,
I would agree. I would agree that that is definitely part of it. Community is always going to be a good thing. And it's just, it's always remember to, like, it's good to remember with stuff like this, the reason behind the emotions always has a root cause. Now, sometimes community can help reveal what that is, but depending on what the root cause is, you need to kind of go through the healing process of basically stopping your past from sabotaging your present.
I agree.
Yeah. So I know it's also a much deeper discussion. I want to be conscious of time so that, 'cause I actually
Yeah,
do have a call with you guys to this, but at least in terms of the awareness of like what the root issue behind the burnout is, like, does this feel like you've added some awareness to that?
yeah, it does. And I feel that I have added some awareness and um, probably I have been showing up in a very, as you said, like pragmatic way, which doesn't invite the kind of closeness and vulnerability that might offer some of the relief that I need,
Yeah.
that many people need.
So I'm glad that that's coming up for you because yes, I do agree with those pieces as well. Um, if this feels like, okay, I got the awareness piece that I needed, um, I think this would be a good place for you to close and just let everybody know, where's the, like, who's the best person to find you? Where can they find you? I mean, like, floor is yours for that.
Um, sure, okay. So who's the best person to find me? Anybody who needs marketing support, whether it's uh, a little bit of marketing support or like a fractional CMO type marketing support. I've worked in, with clients, all kinds of things, all kinds of arrangements, hourly, project, retainer. Um, you can find me on LinkedIn at Lizy Freudmann, and my name is long, so there'll be a link in the show notes, or my website, which is one more thing llc.com. Also, there'll be a link in the show notes. So please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to um, hear what the marketing challenge you're facing is, whether it's like communication with your customers, needing market research, understanding social media, which is sort of a beast, especially right now because the algorithms have changed in response to AI. Lots of stuff going on. Yeah, reach out. Be happy to talk about it. And if I can't help you, I probably know someone who can. So that's also a good reason to contact me. Um, that's it, I guess. Anything else?
That's it. I mean, if that's the main thing you want to shout out about yourself, yeah, I'm good with that. If there's anything else, you let me know.
Can't think of anything.
Okay, awesome. Well, Lizy, thank you very much for being on. Congratulations to yourself for allowing yourself to be witnessed in this way. And yeah, for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.